This is Midwest Moxie, a show about our region's visionary founders and the experiences that shape them. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher, Executive Director of Five Lakes Institute. Ann Holder lived in Palo Alto, California for 6 years, but never found her way into the startup scene. It took a move to Minnesota to make that happen. As an entrepreneur in residence at Mayo Clinic Ventures, Ann worked on commercializing a technology that assesses fetal and maternal heartbeats for signs of detrimental conditions. The result is Marani, a healthcare technology startup whose first products are wearable, washable garments enabled with ECG and AI technology that monitor a mother and her fetus during pregnancy, labor, and delivery. Marani has 12 employees and has raised more than $18 million. Ann, welcome to Midwest Moxie.
Thank you for having me.
Early in your career, you leveraged your operations and engineering abilities at General Mills, Mars, and Pepsi. Then you moved to the telecom industry, taking a national account manager position at ADC. What was the allure to doing that?
So, if I go back in my career and look at what I had done, I ended up getting out of the military and have an engineering degree. And so I got very heavy into engineering and operations in my career. And I actually ended up in these positions where I was managing the expense side of a P&L. And I loved it. I loved managing the teams. I loved seeing the productivity improvements. But the one thing that I was really missing was driving revenue. I wanted to see the other side of the P&L. So I ended up switching into sales. So was really heavy on the tech side and operations side, then ended up moving over into sales when I went to ADC Telecom.
I just want to say P&L is profit and loss statement, the way you look at the whole business, right? And you were very strategic about how you wanted to cover all of it and move ahead in your career. You mentioned West Point. I just want to say one of the interesting things about your military career, you got your engineering degree at West Point. You say that's where you got your sense of service, and that's really influenced your whole career, right?
Right. Yeah, it has. I ended up going to West Point mostly because my dad was an engineer. He was in the Air Force, and I was always around the military. And I just had this passion for the military. And that's really how I ended up at West Point. And what I really learned and grew to appreciate through my career and my life is the fulfillment that I get from service. And that came from the military. And I have a military family. All of my husband, I met at West Point, and all four of my kids have been in the military or are currently serving. And so that's really where I got my sense of service.
Thank you for that. You ended up in Palo Alto, California, because your husband was hired as Stanford University's rugby coach. You had an interesting experience there on the sidelines of your daughter's soccer game that really influenced your career. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. One of my daughters was a really good soccer player, and she was on a club team. And one of the dads on the team, we'd be out on the soccer field every, Saturday. And many times he was out on the field talking on his cell phone, pacing back and forth. And I went up to him one day and I was like, and his name was Emil. I said, Emil, what are you doing? He was like, I'm working. And because my military background, he always called me captain. And he's like, Captain? He goes, I've got a lot of pacemakers that need to go into people today. He was at Medtronic. And with my sales background, it was something that was really needed at Medtronic, and it was negotiating larger scale contracts. And it was something that was relatively new in the med device industry. And it was really Emil that kind of got me to this place where getting into the medical field really played into my sense of service and sense of community. And that's where I really eventually made a transition over to Medtronic, and it's just been incredibly fulfilling for me.
And you ended up, Medtronic is based in Minnesota, so you ended up going back, which your husband's from Minnesota, so that all worked out. When you got to Minnesota, you were working at another company after Medtronic. You met Paul Friedman, who's now head of cardiology at Mayo Clinic, and he told you about this idea he had for using ECGs to monitor fetal and maternal health during pregnancy, labor, and delivery. That led you to volunteer to be an entrepreneur in residence at Mayo Clinic Ventures. That was a big step. That was full time volunteer, no pay. Why were you so intrigued with Paul's idea?
Well, I guess, I spent several years at Medtronic, and a lot of it, particularly Medtronic, is on the cardiovascular side. And so I built a really strong relationship with him through different technologies that we were talking about for chronic disease management, particularly in the cardiovascular space. And he's an electrophysiologist. So, an electrophysiologist is a cardiologist that really understands the electrical workings of a heart. And he's also, I like to refer to him as the father of AI in cardiology because he's a brilliant man who was one of the earlier developers of utilizing AI and neural networks in assessing a signature of an ECG. So take that a little bit further. He had an idea and he said, what if we could actually develop a product where we can capture a fetal ECG and a maternal ECG and utilize all of this new technology and algorithms to assess the ECG signals on a fetus and the mother to assess a risk.
I want to say
Oh,
ECG measures heartbeat, right? So you're looking at the
yeah.
electrical signals from a heartbeat. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. And so that's kind of how this all started. He basically invited me to go down to Mayo as an entrepreneur and talk to them about joining their team to work with a group of physicians and OBGYNs and engineers to really assess the technology and come up with some prototypes.
So there's a whole thing about maternal health and, research into pregnant women that there just isn't as much of it as in other areas. Did that motivate you as well?
Well, it was really interesting. So I am a mother of four, and I've been in labor and delivery 4 times. And of course, when you go into labor and delivery, you're not paying attention to technology. There's a lot of other things that are going on. And I didn't understand the market need and I didn't understand the technology. And what I very quickly realized was there's been very little investment in maternal and fetal monitoring over the years. The technology that's used today was developed in World War I and World War II and put into a medical device in the 1960s. And then I started really paying attention to what is going on with maternal and fetal outcomes in the US, and it was pretty dismal. And so I basically jumped in with both feet to try and figure out a way where I could somehow impact the technology side.
So Mayo spun Marani out and you started running it. You've added a lot to the initial idea. You bought a software platform that you revamped for pre and postnatal care. You built a digital platform that uses AI. You add in a phone app, weight scale, glucometer, and doctors get a dashboard that contains a lot of data about their patients. How is that changing prenatal care?
Basically, what this is doing for us right now, it's addressing what everyone is referring to as maternal deserts across the US. There's a significant lack of OBGYNs across the country, and a lot of hospitals are shutting down OB service lines, particularly in rural areas where there's not a lot of volume just because of the cost associated with it. So, what our platform does, it actually allows for physicians to monitor mothers that don't have access to care or are high risk patients that actually need additional monitoring and just don't have the means to be driving 2 hours each way to an appointment.
And this is a device that the mother wears?
So the device that we created, yes, she would wear it for up to 30 minutes whenever the doctor wants to see the data. And the platform itself, you can also have a blood pressure cuff, a scale, and other technologies. We're also monitoring mental health to understand depression during pregnancy and in the postpartum period, as well as looking at what is referred to as social determinants of health and in helping understand if the mom needs food or transportation Does she have housing? Is she in a safe place? It just allows us to look at that mother holistically and help her get what she needs.
And when you do when the doctor wants the actual monitoring, is that like a strap across her belly? You got to get both heartbeats, right?
Right. It's a compression garment that goes around the belly, and it has sensors in it all around the belly and then also in the back. And basically, we're capturing the ECG of the fetus and the mother as well as contractions.
And who pays for it?
So when it's cleared, it'll probably be paid for by payers.
Cleared by the FDA, you're talking about.
Cleared, yeah,
Yeah.
when I cleared by the FDA, it'll be the payers and then also providers.
But they'll get a lot out of it because they'll have better outcomes, right?
Better outcomes, lower cost of care.
And it is in use right now in testing.
Yeah, well, we've done clinical trials on it already. We've done
Yeah.
some feasibility trials as well as a pivotal trial for the FDA.
So what's been your biggest challenge in startup world?
Quite honestly, it's fundraising is the biggest challenge, as it is for most startups right now. The past 12 months, capital's just been really tight. And VCs seem to be a little bit tight for new investments. They continue to invest in their existing portfolio companies, but new investments are a little more difficult right now.
VCs being venture capitalists.
Exactly. Yes.
What's your vision for Marani? What do you see the potential as?
I think that we are at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to maternal monitoring. The future for us is really developing a data company where we can capture all kinds of data about the mother and then utilize AI. And I know that word is overused, but really look at it so that in the future it can be very predictive and understand when a mother needs intervention. And the goal is really just to improve the quality of care and then also improve outcomes.
I'm sure you've had your ups and downs, but are you feeling good that you went to the startup route?
It has been amazingly fulfilling, and I love it, but it is a roller coaster. Every day is a roller coaster.
Kind of like having 4 kids, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and we'll be so interested to watch your company grow as you go forward.
Um, Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You can read more about today's guest by visiting wuwm.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the show as a podcast if you'd like to take us on the go. Just search for Midwest Moxie wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher. Midwest Moxie was created by executive producer Audrey Nowakowski and me. Today's episode was produced by Audrey Nowakowski and engineered by WUWM's Jason Reevy. Join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. to hear from more visionary Midwestern founders building innovative companies. That's right here on 89.7, Milwaukee's NPR. Support for Midwest Moxie comes from Microsoft, whose efforts to drive technology development across the Midwest and beyond include its National TechSpark community engagement work, which started in Wisconsin, its role as co-founder of Titletown Tech in Green Bay, and its new AI co-innovation lab at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. More information is available at Microsoft.com. And from Quarles and Brady LLP, a multidisciplinary Am Law 200 firm with approximately 550 attorneys who support large and small businesses, from Fortune 500 companies to startups and entrepreneurs across the country. More at Quarles.com.